Alright, what's up? Here we are back with another episode. So this episode, I'm gonna be talking about the Frank Martin versus Michel Rivera fight that happened, what, 3 days ago from when I'm recording this. One heck of a fight that happened in Vegas. Apologies for not previewing the fight. Life got in the way, so I wasn't able to preview it, but definitely want to talk about it, kind of just give a recap and talk about Frank Martin, because I had Martin. I was thinking Frank was going to win the fight, but man, talk about an absolute domination, and that really potentially could catapult him into bigger discussions in the 135 division, which, I said in my first episode's the best division, in my opinion, out right now in boxing. Obviously, other divisions, might have something to say about that, but right now 135 is loaded, and you just add Frank Martin into that. He looked phenomenal, and so we'll just talk about that right now. I'll talk about the fight, talk about how he looked, talk a little on Rivera's side, yeah, and then kind of just stay to 135, because we all know one of the top dogs has a fight in less than 3 weeks, I think, at 135. So, that'll be for a different episode, but we'll kind of look ahead. So, let's just get straight to it, and Martin versus Rivera. So, getting into this fight, I mentioned it, just a second ago. Absolute dominance from Frank Martin versus Michel Rivera, which they mentioned this on the broadcast. It's crazy to think that when this fight, first was announced, not too long ago, because Rivera fought only in October, I believe. So it was when it first was announced, not too long ago. Vegas and people had Rivera as the favorite. Obviously, when it came to fight day, it was slightly in Martin's favor. But, even me, I was thinking this was a 50-50 fight, because Rivera, if you never watched him before, you would probably think, okay, after watching the Martin fight, okay, this is a slouch. No, he's no slouch. He is a real deal fighter. Some people had him, above Martin in the 135, I'd say rankings, So, to see what Martin did all night, he was active, he was moving around, the left was getting in there, because they're talking about how Martin doesn't have the reach on Rivera. They're thinking Rivera was going to use the jab, use his reach, and really keep him at a distance. And Martin was so active that he was fighting from both, from a distance and inside. The way he'd keep his own jab up, he'd block Rivera's attempt at a jab. He'd keep his jab, and then come in with a left real quick and bounce right out. When I say bounce right out, his footwork the entire night. I was watching, he was in and out with a snap of fingers. He'd, get a shot off, get right back out. So Rivera really, he was getting hit and couldn't counter. And Rivera's a good counter puncher, but he just didn't have time, or didn't have, a position, or wasn't available to counter back. And that's why come the later rounds, it was okay, Rivera has to do something, but he's more of a counter. He's a better counter puncher than he is, creating his own, blanking on the word right now. Not punches, but action. He can create his own action, but, can counter with the best of them. So, seeing Frank do that was really good. He drops Rivera in the 7th round, and through the first 6, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, he's winning this fight. Maybe through 6, he's given up 2 rounds. I think maybe Rivera had won 1 round. Maybe it was either the 3rd or 4th, and that was just because Martin. I was afraid Martin had maybe tired himself out those first few rounds, which we all know he didn't. But come the 7th round, he actually drops Rivera, and that was my biggest thing because I was thinking, Martin can beat up on Rivera all night, but does he have power? Because in 135, you're going to need some power. We look at Gervonta Davis. A lot of people don't think he's a great boxer. I think he has really good boxing abilities. But you don't really need it when you have that equalizer. You have that one-punch power that can end a night, You're in the 11th round, you're down 3 rounds. You still have a chance because you have that punch. And granted, I'm not comparing Frank Martin's power to Gervonta Davis's. I don't think anyone can in 135 or maybe even 140 to Gervonta. But, putting power, having enough power to put him on the deck, get you an extra point. That was big. Because I'm like, you can put on a clinic and beat someone all night. But when you're getting those flush shots, hitting him in the face, hitting him in the body, getting whatever you want, put him on the canvas at least once. And he did that. Of course, I would love to see, a knockout. But I think Martin was being extremely cautious. He was getting in, getting out. There were a couple exchanges. There was an exchange in the 7th round. Right before the knockout, actually, there was a nice exchange on the inside, and then Martin was getting out. So, really just a great fight by Martin. And this is where, Martin, of course, promoted by Earl Spence, coached by Derek James. This is where I believe Derek James plays a key part in. Because I truly believe that this was the game plan all along. Was exactly how Martin executed. And Derek James was just named Trainer of the Year by ESPN. Congratulations. There really wasn't any competition having the Earl fight, then the Jermell Charlo fight, and now the Frank Martin fight. Granted, it was announced before the Frank Martin fight, but it was a no-brainer this year that it was Derek James. But I think Frank Martin has a great team around him between Spence. Charlo's going to be in the gym with him. James as his manager. He hired a nutritionist. And here's one thing that I was looking at. Martin, who's 28, for fighters, it's like, you look at it, okay, yeah, he's kind of at the not beginning of his career necessarily, but like, you're just now hearing about him, right? So say he was on the quote-unquote regular boxer's route, right? And you would just be hearing about him. Say he'd be 4 years younger, 24. Okay? He is kind of in the prime of his physical ability, and he's making a name for himself, and he's going to get these big shots coming up. I don't think, because I know they're asking him afterwards, all right, do you want, what do you want next? And he's called out Haney, called out Tank. Being realistic, he's not going to get those shots next. I saw Chris Colbert call him out, not call him out, but say, we can get it on. Martin's not going to get those big names yet, because what I'm mentioning, he's not your regular, necessarily upstart fighter, or beginning of the career fighter. He's 28, in his physical peak, with Trainer of the Year and one of the best fighters in the world by his side. He's not going to get those great looks right off the bat. So with that, it's going to have to be patience for Frank Martin. he looked incredible. I mean, one thing they did mention in this broadcast, which great point. If he gets an uppercut, that would become very deadly. Because when he was on the inside, he could, if he had an uppercut against Rivera, that would have been, I think, lights out for Rivera. He used one once or twice, stung him, but you develop a hard-hitting uppercut that does some damage. Big lot of short nights, I think, for Frank Martin. Overall, I'm just really impressed by his athleticism. I heard coming into the fight, that's what people were raving about, his athleticism. Man, he didn't get tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just consistently was going and going and going. He just didn't get tired. He really, at 135, is going to be a problem for whoever fights him. With that, I mean, like, who's going to fight him? Martin fought 3 times this year. He wants to fight, So, we'll see. Kind of pivoting to Rivera. Man. He's a good fighter. You can't write him off because, Frank Martin's really good. Rivera just looked like he had a very bad night. So with all that, can't count. And even on inside exchanges, Rivera held his own. I don't know if he was really able to comprehend how to get around a southpaw, because couldn't get his right foot in the right places. He just was left in the perfect hitting range for Frank Martin. Martin was just teeing off all night, and I don't think he was ready for the speed, the athleticism. So, you go back to the drawing board, and, Rivera's a good fighter. He'll be back. All kudos to him for, putting his undefeated record on the line. So, with that, I mean, just a great fight. Not a great fight necessarily, but 2 young, great fighters fighting, entertaining. The sky's the limit for Frank Martin. Just depends on what opportunities he's going to get at PBC. Not at PBC, at 135, and who he fights. Because, you want to fight in Haney. He's Showtime PBC fighter with Spence. Haney's top rank. That's, boxing politics. So you never know. But overall, a really good fight for Frank Martin. He looked incredible. Derek James looks like he had him, finally fine-tuned. Game plan was superb. Really a perfect night for Frank Martin. Putting both the boxing 135 and the boxing world on notice. So that's just my little short recap of Frank Martin versus Michel Rivera. Wasn't, there wasn't any controversy. Frank Martin just really dominated. So not too much to talk about. We'll talk more about Frank Martin with his career as it continues to progress forward. But this fight, not too much to talk about. When I'm recording this, happy holidays to anyone who's listening. Probably nothing for the rest of the year, I don't think, boxing-wise. Coming into Christmas, New Year's, nothing much. But Tank Davis, January 7th, we'll go full court press with that. Start talking about that fight coming up. And I'm excited for that one. That's another 135-pounder. And yeah, man, I appreciate everyone for listening. That was just a quick recap / review of the Martin versus Rivera fight. Have a safe and happy holidays, everyone. I'll catch you next time. Peace.